landscape is more varied in sculpture. None more delicately modeled than these landscapes of the sky, domes and peaks rising, swelling, white as finest marble and firmly outlined. A most impressive manifestation of world building. Every rain cloud, however fleeting, leaves its mark, not only on trees and flowers whose pulses are quickened, and on the replenished streams and lakes, but also on the rocks or its marks engraved whether we can see them or not. I have been examining the curious and influential shrub at Nostrum fasciculata. First noticed about Horseshoe Bend. It is very abundant on the lower slopes of the second plateau near Coulterville, forming a dense, almost impenetrable growth that looks dark in the distance. It belongs to the rose family, is about 6 or 8 feet high, has small white flowers and racemes 8 to 12 inches long, round needle-like leaves, and reddish bark that becomes stringy when old. It grows on sun-beaten slopes, and like grass is often swept away by running fires, but is quickly renewed from the roots. Any trees that may have established themselves in its midst are at length killed by these fires, and this no doubt is the secret of the unbroken character of its broad boughs. A few manzanitas, which also rise again from the root after consuming fires, make out to dwell with it. Also a few bush composita, baccharis and linoceras, and some liliaceous plants, mostly calocordas and brodia, with deep-set bulbs safe from fire. A multitude of birds and wheat, sleekit, cowrit, timorous beasties find good homes in its deepest thickets, and the open bays and lanes that fringe the margins of its main belts offer shelter and food to the deer when winter storms drive them down from their high mountain pastures. A most admirable plant. It is now in bloom, and I like to wear its pretty fragrant racemes in my buttonhole. Azalea occidentalis, another charming shrub, grows beside cool streams hereabouts and much higher in the Yosemite region. Floating fountains refreshing the glorious wilderness. Sky mountains in whose pearly hills and dales the streams take their rise, blessing with cooling shadows and rain. No rock landscape is more varied in sculpture. None more delicately modeled than these landscapes of the sky, domes and peaks rising, swelling, white as finest marble and firmly outlined. A most impressive manifestation of world building. Every rain cloud, however fleeting, leaves its mark, not only on trees and flowers whose pulses are quickened, and on the replenished streams and lakes, but also on the rocks or its marks engraved whether we can see them or not. I have been examining the curious and influential shrub at Nostrum fasciculata. First noticed about Horseshoe Bend. It is very abundant on the lower slopes of the second plateau near Coulterville, forming a dense, almost impenetrable growth that looks dark in the distance. It belongs to the rose family, is about 6 or 8 feet high, has small white flowers and racemes 8 to 12 inches long, round needle-like leaves, and reddish bark that becomes stringy when old. It grows on sun-beaten slopes, and like grass is often swept away by running fires. Quickly renewed from the roots. Any trees that may have established themselves in its midst are at length killed by these fires, and this no doubt is the secret of the unbroken character of its broad belts. Few manzanitas, which also rise again from the root after consuming fires, may help to dwell with it. Also a few bush composite of baccharis and linoceras, and some liliaceous plants, mostly calocordas and brodia, with deep-set bulbs safe from fire. A multitude of birds and wheat, sleekit, cowrit, timorous beasties find good homes in its deepest thickets, and the open bays and lanes that fringe the margins of its main belts offer shelter and food deer when winter storms drive them down from their high mountain pastures. A most admirable plant. It is known blue, and I like to wear its pretty favorite Ricimum at home. Azalea occidentalis, another charming shrub, grows beside cool streams hereabouts and much higher in the Yosemite region. We found it this evening in bloom a few miles above Greeley's Mill, where we are camped for the night. It is closely related to the rhododendrons, is very showy and fragrant, and everybody must like it not only for itself, but for the shady alders and willows, ferny meadows, and living water associated with it. Another conifer was met today, Incense Cedar libistris decurrens, a large tree with warm yellow-green foliage and flat plumes like those of arborvitae, bark cinnamon-colored, and as the boles of the old trees are without limbs, they make striking pillars in the woods where the sun chances to shine on them, a worthy companion of the kingly sugar and yellow pines. I feel strangely attracted to this tree. The brown close grained wood, as well as the small scale-like leaves, is fragrant, and the flat overlapping plumes make fine beds, and must shed the rain well. It would be delightful to be storm-bound beneath one of these noble, hospitable, inviting old trees. Its branch sheltering ours bent down like a tent, incense rising from the fire made from its dry fallen branches, and a hearty wind chanting overhead. But the weather's come tonight, and our camp is only a sheep camp. We are near the North Fork of the Merced. The night wind is telling the wonders of the upper mountains. There's no fountains and gardens, forests and groves. Even their topography is in its tones. And the stars, the everlasting sky lilies, how bright they are now that we have climbed above the lowland dust. The horizon is bounded and adorned by a sparry wall of pines. Every tree harmoniously related to every other. Definite symbols. Divine hieroglyphics written with sunbeams. Would I could understand them! The stream flowing past the camp through firs and lilies and alders makes sweet music to the ear. Marshaled around the edge of the sky, making yet sweeter music to the eye. Divine beauty all! Here I could stay here forever with just bread and water. No way lonely. Both friends and neighbors. As love for everything increased, would seem all the nearer however many the miles and mountains between us. June 7th! The sheep were sick last night, and many of them are still far from well. Hardly able to leave camp. Coughing, groaning, looking wretched and pitiful, all from eating the leaves of the blessed azalea. So at least say the shepherd and the dawn. Having had but little grass since they left the plains, they are starving, and so eat anything green they can get. Sheepmen call azalea sheep poison, and wonder what the Creator was thinking about when he made it. So desperately does. No! After his dull drag all day after the sheep, he must get his supper. He is likely to dislike his task and try to satisfy his hunger with whatever comes handy. Perhaps no bread is baked. Then he just makes a few grimy flapjacks in his unwashed frying pan, boils a handful of tea, and perhaps fries a few strips of rusty bacon. Usually there are dried peaches or apples in the cabin, but he hates to be bothered with the cooking of them. Just swallows the bacon and flapjacks, and depends on the genial stupefaction of tobacco for the rest. Then to bed, often without removing the clothing worn during the day. Of course his health suffers, reacting on his mind. and seeing nobody for weeks or months. He finally becomes semi-insane or wholly so. The shepherd in Scotland seldom thinks of being anything but a shepherd. He has probably descended from a race of shepherds and inherited a love and aptitude for the business almost as marked as that of his calling. He has but a small flock to look after, sees his family and neighbors, has time for reading in fine weather, and often carries books to the fields with which he may converse with kings. The Oriental shepherd, we read, called his sheep by name. They knew his voice and followed him. The flocks must have been small and easily managed, allowing piping on the hills and ample leisure for reading and thinking. But whatever the blessings of sheep culture in other times and countries, the California shepherd, as far as I've seen or heard, is never quite sane for any considerable time. Of all nature's voices is about all he hears. Even the howls and keys and coyotes might be blessings if well heard, but he hears them only through a blur of mutton and wool, and they do him no good. The sick sheep are getting well, and the shepherd is discoursing on the various poisons lurking in these high pastures. Azalea, call me up. Alkali, after crossing the North Fork of the Merced, we turned to the left toward Pilot Peak and made a considerable ascent on a rocky, brush-covered ridge of Browns Flat, where for the first time since leaving the plains, the flock is enjoying plenty of green grass. Mr. Delaney intends to seek a permanent camp somewhere in the neighborhood to last several weeks. Before noon, we passed Bar Cave, a delightful marble palace, not dark and dripping, but filled with sunshine, which pours into it through its wide-open mouth facing the south. It has a fine, deep, clear little lake with mossy banks embowered with broad-leaved maples, all underground, wholly unlike anything I have seen in the cave line even in Kentucky, where a large part of the state is honeycombed with caves. This curious specimen of submarine scenery is located on a belt of marble that is said to extend from the north end of the range to the extreme south. Many other caves occur on the belt, but none like this, as far as I have learned. Sunny outdoor brightness and vegetation with the crystalline beauty of the underworld. It is claimed by a Frenchman who has fenced and locked it, placed a boat on the lakelet and seats on the mossy bank under the maple trees, and charges $1 admission fee, being on one of the ways to the Yosemite Valley. A good many tourists visit it during the travel months of summer, regarding it as an interesting addition to their Yosemite wonders. Poison oak or poison ivy, Ristifer syllable, both as a bush and a scrambler up trees and rocks, is common throughout the foothill region up to a height of at least 3,000 feet above the sea. It is somewhat troublesome to most travelers, inflaming the skin and eyes, but blends harmoniously with its companion plants, and many a charming flower leans confidingly upon it for protection and shade. I have oftentimes found the curious twining lily, Strophalarian californicum, climbing its branches, showing no fear, but rather congenial companionship. Sheep eat it without apparent ill effects. So do horses to some extent, though not fond of it. And to many persons it is harmless. Goes on with never a guess that first of all it might have been made for itself. Brown's Flat is a shallow fertile valley on the top of the divide between the North Fork of the Merced and Bull Creek, commanding magnificent views in every direction. Here the adventurous pioneer David Brown made his headquarters for many years, dividing his time between gold hunting and bear hunting. Where could lonely hunter find a better solitude? Game in the woods, gold in the rocks, health and exhilaration at the air. while the colors and cloud furniture of the sky are ever-inspiring through all sorts of weather, though sternly practical. Like most pioneers, old David seems to have been uncommonly fond of scenery. Mr. Delaney, who knew him well, tells me that he dearly loved to climb to the summit of a commanding ridge to gaze abroad over the forest to the snow-clad peaks and sources of the rivers, and over the foreground valleys and gulches to note where miners were at work or claims were abandoned, judging by smoke from cabins and campfires, the sounds of axes, etc. And when a rifle shot was heard, to guess who was the hunter, whether Indian or some poacher on his white domain, his dog Sandy accompanied him everywhere. And while the little hairy mountaineer knew and loved his master and his master's aims, in deer hunting he had but little to do, trotting behind his master as he slowly made his way through the wood, careful not to step heavily on dry twigs, scanning open spots of the chaparral, where the game wants to feed in the early morning and towards sunset, peering cautiously over ridges as new outlooks were reached, and along the meadowy borders of streams. But when bears were hunted, little Sandy became more important, and it was as a bear hunter that Brown became famous. This hunting method, as described by Mr. Delaney, who had passed many a night with him in his lonely cabin and learned his stories, was simply to go slowly and silently through the best bear pastures, with his dog and rifle and a few pounds of flour, until he found a fresh track and then follow it to the death, paying no heed to the time required. Wherever the bear went he followed, led by little Sandy, who had a keen nose and never lost the track. However rocky the ground, when high open points were reached, the likeliest places were carefully scanned. The time of year enabled the hunter to determine approximately where the bear would be found. In the spring and early summer on open spots about the banks of streams and springy places eating grass and clover and lupines, or in dry meadows feasting on strawberries. Toward the end of summer, on dry ridges, feasting on manzana berries, sitting on his haunches, pulling down the laden branches with his paws, and pressing them together so as to get good compact mouthfuls, however much mixed with twigs and leaves. In the Indian summer, beneath the pines, chewing the cones cut off by the squirrels, or occasionally climbing a tree to gnaw and break off the fruitful branches. In late autumn, when acorns are ripe, Bruin's favorite feeding grounds are groves of the California oak and park like Cannon Flats. Always the cunning hunter knew where to look, and seldom came upon Bruin unawares. When the hot scent showed the dangerous game was nigh, a long halt was made, and the intricacies of the topography and vegetation leisurely scanned to catch a glimpse of the shaggy wanderer, or to at least determine where he was most likely to be. Whenever, said the hunter, I saw a bear before it saw me, I had no trouble in killing it. I just studied the lay of the land and got to leeward of it no matter how far around I had to go, and then worked up to within a few 100 yards or so, at the foot of a tree that I could easily climb, but too small for the bear to climb. Then I looked well to the condition of my rifle, took off my boots so as to climb well if necessary, and waited until the bear turned and sight in clear view when I could make a sure or at least a good shot. In case it showed fight, I climbed out of reach. But bears are slow and awkward with their eyes, and being to leeward of them they could not scent me, and I often got in a second shot before they noticed the smoke. Usually, however, they run when wounded and hide in the brush. I let them run a good safe time before I ventured to follow them, and Sandy was pretty sure to find them dead. If not, he barked and drew their attention, and occasionally rushed in for a distracting bite, so that I was able to get to a safe distance for a final shot. Oh yes, bear hunting is safe enough when followed in a safe way. Though like every other business, it has its accidents. And little Doggy and I have had some close calls. Bears like to keep out of the way of men as a general thing. But if in a hold, lean, hungry mother with cubs met a man on her own ground, she would, in my opinion, try to catch and eat him. This would be only fair play anyhow, for we eat them. But nobody hereabout has been used for bear grub that I know of. Brown had left his mountain home ere we arrived, but a considerable number of Digger and Dean still linger in their cedar bark huts on the edge of the flat. They were attracted in the first place by the white hunter whom they had learned to respect, and to whom they looked for guidance and protection against their enemies, the Paiutes, who sometimes made raids across from the east side of the range to plunder the stores of the comparatively feeble diggers and steal their wives. End of chapter 1. You are watching the audiobook of My First Summer in the Sierra by John Muir. Live from Yosemite National Park in California. Of the Merced, Judy, the sheep, now grassy and good-natured, slowly nibbled their way down into the valley of the North Fork of the Merced at the foot of Pilot Peak Range, to the place elected by the Dawn for our first central camp. A picturesque hopper-shaped hollow formed by converging hill slopes at a bend of the river. Here racks for dishes of provisions were made in the shade of the river bank trees, and beds of fern fronds, cedar plumes, and various flowers, each to the taste of its owner, and a corral back on the open flat for the wall. June 9! How deep our sleep last night in the mountain's heart, beneath the trees and stars, hushed by psalm-sounding waterfalls and me small soothing voices in sweet accord whispering peace. And our first pure mountain day, warm, calm, cloudless. How immeasurable it seems, how serenely wild. I can scarcely remember its beginning. Along the river, over the hill, in the ground, in the sky, spring work is going on with joyful enthusiasm. New life, new beauty, unfolding, unrolling in glorious exuberant extravagance. New birds in their nests, new winged creatures in the air, and new leaves, new flowers, spreading, shining, rejoicing everywhere. The trees about the camp stand close, giving ample shade for ferns and lilies, while back from the bank most of the sunshine reaches the ground, calling up the grasses and flowers in glorious array. Tall bromus waving like bamboos, starry compositae, monardula, mariposa tulips, lupines, gilias, violets, blood children of light. Soon every fern frond will be unrolled. Great beds of comet-terrace and woodwardy along the river. Wreaths and rosettes of pelea and chilanthes on sunny rocks. Some of the woodwardy fronds are already 6 feet high. A handsome little shrub, Chamaebatia foliolosa, belonging to the rose family, spreads a yellow-green mantle beneath the sugar pines for miles without a break. Not makes her roped with other plants. Only here and there Washington lily may be seen nodding above its even surface, or a bunch or two of tall bromas as if for ornament. This fun carpet shrub begins to appear at, say, 2,500 or 3,000 feet above sea level. It's about knee higher or less, has brown branches, and the largest stems are only about half an inch in diameter. The leaves, light yellow-green, very pinnate and finely cut, give them a rich, fruity appearance, and they are dotted with minute glands that secrete wax with a peculiar pleasant odor that blends finely with the spicy fragrance of the pines. The flowers are white, 5/8 of an inch in diameter, and look like those of the strawberry. And delighted with this little bush. It is the only true carpet shrub of this part of the Sierra, the manzanita. Most of the species of Xenopus make shaggy rocks and border fringes rather than carpets or mantles. The sheep do not take kindly to their new pastures, perhaps from being too closely hemmed in by the hills. They are never fully at rest. Last night they were frightened, probably by bears or coyotes prowling and planning for a share of the grand mass of mutton. Q10! Very warm! We get water for the camp from a rock basin at the foot of a picturesque cascading reach of the river where it is well stirred and made lively without being beaten into dusty foam. The rock here is black metamorphic slate, worn into smooth knobs of the stream channels, contrasting with the fine gray and white cascading water as it glides and glances and falls and lace like sheets and braided over folding currents. Tufts of sedge growing on the rock knobs that rise above the surface produce a charming effect. The long elastic leaves arching over in every direction, the tips of the longest drooping into the current, which dividing against the projecting rocks make still finer lines, uniting with the sedges to see how beautiful the heavy stream can be made. Nor is this all, for the giant septic range also is growing on some of the knob rock islets, firmly anchored and displaying their broad, round, umbrella-like leaves in chewy groups by themselves, or above the sedge tops. The flowers of this species, Saxifraga peltida, are purple, and form tall glandular racemes that are in blue before the appearance of the leaves. The fleshy root stalks grip the rock in cracks and hollows, and disable the plant to hold on against occasional floods. A marked species employed by nature to make yet more beautiful the most interesting portions of these cool, clear streams. Near camp, the trees arch over from bank to bank, making a leafy tunnel full of soft, subdued light, through which the young river sings and shines like a happy living creature. Heard a few peals of thunder from the upper Sierra, and saw firm white bossy cumuli rising back of the pines. This was about noon, June 11th. On one of the eastern branches of the river discovered some charming cascades with a pool at the foot of each of them. White dashing water, a few bushes and tufts of carex on ledges leaning over with fine effect, and large orange lilies assembled in superb groups on fertile slope beds beside the pools. There are no large meadows or grassy plains near camp to supply lasting pasture for our thousands of busy nibblers. The main dependence is Xenopus brush on the hills and tufted grass patches here and there, with lupines and peavines among the flowers on sunny open spaces. Large areas have already been stripped bare, or nearly so, compelling the poor hungry wool bundles to scatter far and wide, keeping the shepherds and dogs at the top of their speed to hold them within bounds. Mr. Delaney has gone back to the plains, taking the Indian and Chinaman with him. leaving instruction to keep the flock here or hereabouts until his return, which he promised would not be long delayed. How fine the weather is! Nothing more celestial can I conceive. How gently the winds blow. Scarce can these tranquil air currents be called winds. They seem the very breath of nature, whispering peace to every living thing. Down in the camp dell there is no swaying of treetops. Most of the time not a leaf moves. I don't remember having seen a single lily swinging on its stalk, though they are so tall the least breeze would rock them. What grand bells these lilies have! Some of them big enough. Sketching them, and would fain draw every leaf of their white shining whorls and every curved and spotted petal. More beautiful, better kept gardens cannot be imagined. The species is Lilium parlinum, 5 to 6 feet high, leaf whorls a foot wide, flowers about 6 inches wide, bright orange, purple spotted in the throat, segments revolute a majestic land. June 12! A slight sprinkle of rain, large drops far apart, falling with hardy padded flesh of leaves and stones and into the mouths of the flowers. Cumuli rising to the eastward. How beautiful their pearly bosses! How well they harmonize with the upswelling rocks beneath them. Mountains of the sky, solid looking, finely sculptured. Their richly varied topography wonderfully defined. Never before have I seen clouds so substantial looking in form and texture. Nearly every day toward noon they rise with visible swelling motion as if new worlds were being created. And how fondly they brood and hover over the gardens and forests with their cooling shadows and showers, keeping every petal and leaf in glad health and heart. One may fancy the clouds themselves are plants, springing up in the sky fields at the call of the sun, growing in beauty until they reach their prime, scattering rain and hail like berries and seeds, then wilting and dying. The mountain live oak, common here at 1,000 feet or so higher, is like the live oak of Florida, not only in general appearance, foliage, bark, and white branching habit, but in its tough, knotty, unwedgeable wood, standing alone with plenty of elbow root. The largest trees are about 7 to 8 feet in diameter near the ground, 60 feet high, as wider across the head. The leaves are small and uninvited, mostly without teeth or wavy edges, though on young shoots some are sharply serrated, both kinds being found on the same tree. The cups of the medium-sized acorns are shallow, thick-walled, and covered with the golden dust of minute hairs. Some of the trees have hardly any main trunk, dividing near the ground into large, wide-spreading limbs, and these, dividing again and again, terminate in long, drooping, cord-like branchlets, many of which reach nearly to the ground, while a dense cavity of short, shining, leafy branchlets forms a round head which looks something like a cumulus cloud when the sunshine is pouring over it. A marked plant is the bush poppy, Dendron conridium, found on the hot hillsides near camp. The only witty member of the order I have yet met in all my walks. Its flowers are bright orange-yellow, an inch to 2 inches wide. Fruit pods 3 or 4 inches long, slender and curving. Height of bush is about 4 feet, made up of many slim, straight branches, radiating from the root. A companion of the manzanita and other sun-loving chaparral shrubs. June 13. Another glorious Sierra day in which one seems to be dissolved and absorbed and set pulsing onward we know not where. Life seems neither long nor short, and we take no more heed to save time or make haste than do the trees and stars. This is true freedom, a good practical sort of immortality. Yonder rises another white skylit. How sharply the yellow pine spires and the palm-like crowns of the sugar pines are outlined on its smooth white domes. And hark! The grand thunderbolts booming, rolling from ridge to ridge, followed by the faithful shower. A good many herbaceous plants come as far up the mountains from the plains, and are now in flower, 2 months later than their lowland relatives. Saw a few columbines today. Most of the ferns are in their prime. Rock ferns on the sunny hillsides. Jaelanthus, Pelea, Gymnogram, Woodwardia, Aspidium, woods along the stream banks, and the common Pteris aquilina on sandy flats. This last, however common, is here making shows of strong, exuberant, abounding beauty to set the botanist wild with admiration. I measured some scarce full-grown that are more than 7 feet high. Though the commonest and most widely distributed of all the ferns, I might almost say that I never saw it before. Broad-shouldered fronds held high on smooth stout stalks growing close together, overleaning and overlapping, make a complete ceiling, beneath which one may walk erect over several acres without being seen, as if beneath a roof. And how soft and lovely the light streaming through this living ceiling. Together a fair land created out of the commonest fern stalk. The smaller animals wander about as if in a tropical forest. I saw the entire flock of sheep vanish at one side of a patch and reappear 100 yards farther on at the other, their progress betrayed only by the jerking and trembling of the fronds. And strange to say, very few of the stout woody stalks were broken. I sat a long time beneath the tallest fronds, and never enjoy anything in the way of a bower of wild leaves more strangely impressive. Only spread a fern frond over a man's head and worldly cares are cast out, and freedom and beauty and peace come in. The waving of a pine tree on the top of a mountain, a magic wand in nature's hand. Every devout mountaineer knows its power, but the marvelous beauty value of what the Scotch call a brecon is still doubt. What poet has sung this? It would seem impossible that anyone, however encrusted with care, could escape the godful influence of these sacred fern forests. Yet this very day I saw a shepherd pass through one of the finest of them without betraying more feeling than his sheep. What do you think of these grand ferns? I asked. Oh, they're elementally deep in breaks. He replied, lizards of every temper, style, and color dwell here, seemingly as happy and companionable as the birds and squirrels. Lowly, gentle fellow mortals, enjoying God's sunshine, and doing the best they can in getting a living. I like to watch them at their work and play. They bear acquaintance well, and one likes them the better the longer one looks into their beautiful, innocent eyes. They are easily tamed, and one soon learns to love them, as they dart about on the hot rocks, swift as dragonflies. I can hardly follow them, but they never make long sustained runs, usually only about 10 or 12 feet. Then a sudden stop, and a sudden start again, going off their journeys I quick, jerking impulses. These many stops I find are necessary as rests, for they are short-winded, and when pursued steadily are soon out of breath, pant pimpling, and are easily caught. Their bodies are more than half-tail, but these tails are well managed, never heavily dragged nor curved up as if hard to carry. On the contrary, they seem to follow the body lightly of their own will. Some are colored like the sky, bright as bluebirds. Others gray like the lichen rocks on which they hunt and bask. Even the horned toad of the plains is a mild, harmless creature. And so are the snake-like species which glide in curves with true snake motion. While they're small, and developed limbs drag as useless appendages. One specimen 14 inches long which I observed closely made no use whatever of its tender, sprouting limbs, but glided with all the soft, slight ease and grace of a snake. Here comes a little, brave, dusty fellow who...